The other main event of 1970 was a guy named
Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee.
Bruce.
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 Bruce Lee.
There's some things I still think up to this day nobody do better than he does. The spirit of fighting, the charismatic, the stardom kind of attraction that comes along not only with his performances but his philosophy in fighting and deal with life. That was very straightforward, very westernized, very gung-ho, can-do spirit than a repressed Chinese zigzagging kind of attitude.
Bruce Lee, who would have such an impact on martial arts films, was actually born and raised in San Francisco, California.
Bruce was an actor before he was a martial artist. He did his first commercial when I think he was 5, and he didn't start studying Kung Fu until he was 10. And, you know, his father was an opera singer, and, I mean, that guy, he's a showbiz guy.
The first martial arts film, or television actually, was Bruce Lee's Green Hornet. And one day I was watching this, obviously an Asian guy with a mask on, jumping up and down and doing flying kicks.
Green Hornet was a successful series, but the United States wasn't ready for Bruce Lee to become a leading man.
I admire Bruce Lee. I remember in one interview when he was saying that the Kung Fu TV series, you know, is supposed to be written for him, and because he's an Asian, you know, Chinese face, and back then American television, they don't believe that, you know, they can, you know, they would like to see an Asian hero.
Bruce Lee left the United States and headed back to his adopted country, Hong Kong.
When Bruce first joined us, the first picture we have him made was done in Bangkok. And after the first day's work, the director called and said that I want to change Bruce Lee because he can't fight. I said, why? He said, everybody in the unit knows that we're now calling him Lee 3 Kicks, because he can kick only 3 times. So I flew to Bangkok, looked at the situation and asked Bruce what happened. Bruce said, this director is useless because these 3 guys are just sort of soldiers, very low down soldiers who can't really fight. If I have to spend 5 minutes dealing with them, what I'm going to do when I meet the real good martial artists? And besides, he said, the way I kick these 3 kicks is so strong, they should be out completely. So I look at the film and I think I agree with him, and we just quietly changed the director, and really the rest is history.
I think he has an effect on each of us who are Chinese and work in the movie industry. His ethnic identity is very strong, and it makes everyone excited. He stands out from the crowd and is proud of being a Chinese. His sense of identity of being a Chinese is really strong.
I think Bruce, you know, he was much more than just a martial artist, and he was much more than a martial arts actor or superstar. The philosophy that he had, the things that he wrote, the Tao of Taekwondo, the ideas that he had were so far and ahead of his time.
I said, empty your mind, be formless. shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
His most special quality is that he had his own character. He allowed his character and acting to be different from others. His confidence is very high, and he combined the Chinese ways and Western styles. His style is not purely Chinese, but he included the Westernized ingredients in expressing his loyalty to his country and race. Watching him is not only seeing an actor, but more, and very special.
Styles tends to not only separate men, because they have their own doctrines, and then the doctrine became the gospel truth, that you cannot change, But if you do not have style, you just say, well, here I am, as a human being. How can I express myself? Totally and completely. Now, that way, you won't create a style, because style is a crystallization, that way, it's a process of continuing growth. And when you do punch, now lean forward a little bit, hoping not to hurt any camera angle, you gotta put the whole hip into it, and snap it, and get all your energy into it, and make this into a weapon.
I never see anybody do change of rhythm in a fight so well as he does, even up to these days. This choreograph, boom, 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 it takes certain rhythms, and nobody fight like that. But his fight looks more powerful and real and more spiritual, because every punch is from every block he does, every change of rhythm he does, even eye shifting means something. And that's very intriguing. It's great entertainment and very inspiring.
His eyes always look forward. Those movements were so tremendous that on set they make fling-fling sounds. The winds from his fist scare you to death.
And I remember I went to see Enter the Dragon, and I came back and I said to Jerry Thorpe, have you seen this movie? And he said, no. And I said, you haven't? You gotta see this movie. And I decided to make it mandatory that everybody on the crew see the movie. He said, we're up against the James Bond of martial arts. And I said, no, Terry, we're up against the James Dean of martial arts. Big difference.
To me, to me, ultimately, martial art means honestly expressing yourself. Now, it is very difficult to do. It is easy for me to put on a show and be cocky, and be flooded with a cocky feeling, and then feel like pretty cool and all that. Or I can make all kinds of phony things, you see what I mean? Blinded by it, or I can show you some really fancy movement. But to express oneself honestly, not lying to oneself, and to express myself honestly, that, my friend, is very hard to do.
Audiences often wonder why most martial arts films were period pieces set in centuries long ago. And Bruce Lee had a simple answer for that.
Nowadays, you don't go around the street kicking people or punching people. Because if you do, that's it. I don't care how good you are,
In spite of this belief, Bruce Lee was one of the first innovators to portray martial arts in a contemporary setting. In 1973, at the age of 32, Bruce Lee tragically died from a brain edema. He had only completed 4 movies, but they would open up the world to the martial arts genre. Almost as soon as the world got to appreciate him, he passed away. Over 20,000 fans showed up for his funeral.
people still love Bruce Lee and also stage, and he makes this keep on. His spirit is still there. The movie is now still keep on showing. We still look at it. So many things to impress us. He's the only kung fu master I think in our show business, in our Chinese films. Not because of he's a real kung fu martial artist. He can make the kung fu become a kind of kung fu plus ballet. Plus a kind of soul. To something to explain that he's a spirit that can show on pictures.
Bruce Lee's death created a vacuum unprecedented in martial arts film.